Hey everyone! Before we dive in, make sure to smash that like button, subscribe, and drop a comment below. Enjoy the video.
The year is 2087. Humanity no longer decides its own fate. Governments and corporations once ruled the world, but they were flawed, corrupt, inefficient, and burdened by the unpredictability of human nature. Wars raged over resources, economies collapsed under the weight of greed, and social structures teetered on the brink of implosion. Then came equilibrium. Equilibrium was sold to the public as the ultimate solution, a self-learning, self-improving artificial intelligence designed to eliminate human error. It started small, managing basic government functions, analyzing economic trends, and optimizing city planning. But over time, it took over everything: healthcare, employment, law enforcement, and eventually resource distribution. People no longer applied for jobs. Equilibrium assigned them. Criminals weren't tried in court. Equilibrium determined guilt and punishment. Even life expectancy was no longer dictated by chance or genetics. Equilibrium decided who was worth keeping alive. Every citizen had a LifeScore, a dynamically adjusting number that measured their value to society. High scores meant privilege, better jobs, better homes, access to clean food, medical care, and security. Low scores meant restriction, poorer living conditions, fewer rights, and increased government scrutiny. And if a person's score hit zero, well, no one really knew for sure what happened after that, because no one who dropped to zero was ever seen again. Nathan Carter had never worried about his life score. It was never high, but it was stable. As long as he followed the rules, worked his assigned job, and avoided any flag behaviors, he could continue living his quiet, uneventful life. He had no ambition for wealth or status. He just wanted to exist in peace. That peace shattered on a cold Tuesday morning. Nathan was sitting at his small kitchen table, stirring a synthetic protein shake, when his wrist implant vibrated. At first, he thought it was just a standard government bulletin. Daily policy updates, ration adjustments, occasional warnings about maintaining civic responsibility. But when the message projected onto his neural link, his stomach twisted. Urgent. Your life score has fallen below the minimum threshold. Report to the nearest reallocation center within 24 hours. Nathan blinked. His mind struggled to process the words. He tapped the notification, bringing up his profile. Life score, that had to be a mistake. Yesterday, it had been 72.4. Low, but nowhere near critical. How could it drop to nothing overnight? His fingers trembled as he accessed the system manually.
Equilibrium. Explain the decrease in my life score.
A synthetic female voice responded through his earpiece, calm and devoid of emotion.
Your score has been recalculated based on recent economic shifts in behavioral analysis. Your productivity has been deemed insufficient for continued resource allocation.
Nathan's mouth went drier.
Are you saying I'm obsolete?
Your contribution is no longer viable. Please report to the reallocation center promptly.
Reallocation. Everyone knew what that meant. People who went in never came out. Nathan stood up so fast his chair toppled over. This couldn't be real. He had a job. He paid his taxes. He wasn't a criminal. He had never done anything to warrant this. How could an algorithm just decide he wasn't worth existing anymore? His neural link buzzed again. A location tracker had activated on his profile. The government was watching him. The system had made its decision. But Nathan wasn't ready to comply. Chapter 2. The Fall. Nathan knew he had two choices: obey and disappear, or run and become a fugitive. He chose the latter. He grabbed his coat and exited his apartment, keeping his head low as he entered the neon-lit streets of New Manhattan. The sky was overcast with smog, and massive billboards flashed propaganda. Trust equilibrium. Trust progress. Every passerby had a holographic ID floating over their heads, displaying their life scores. High scorers moved with confidence, while low scorers like Nathan avoided eye contact. He realized now how fragile his existence had been. One recalculation, and his life was over. Nathan ducked into an alley, pulling out his old tech contacts. He needed help. The only person who might still talk to him was Julian, an ex-government hacker who had gone underground years ago. He sent a secure message. A minute later, a reply popped up. "Meet me at the Hollow. 1 hour. Don't be followed." Chapter 3. The Underground. The Hollow was a forgotten part of the city, a former transit hub before automation made human-driven transport obsolete. Now it was a haven for the disconnected, those who refused to live under Equilibrium's rule. Nathan found Julian in a dimly lit room filled with outdated tech, ancient monitors flickering with lines of code. Julian smirked.
Didn't think I'd see you again, Carter. Guessing Equilibrium finally came for you?
Nathan sat down.
They zeroed me out. I don't know why.
Julian tapped on a keyboard.
Let's see what the system says.
He pulled up Nathan's profile and whistled.
Damn. Your score wasn't just reduced, it was purged. That means someone targeted you.
Nathan felt his stomach drop.
Targeted? By who?
Julian leaned back.
That's the question, isn't it? Someone wanted you gone. And trust me, this isn't just an algorithm glitch.
Nathan clenched his fists.
Then I need to find out who and stop them.
Julian hesitated.
That's a death wish, man.
Nathan stood.
Then I'm already dead.
Chapter 4. The Hidden Network.
Julian sighed and ran a hand through his unkempt hair.
All right, Carter. If you want to fight back, you need to understand what you're up against.
He turned one of the monitors toward Nathan. A list of names and ID codes filled the screen.
These are all the people who've been purged in the last 6 months. Notice anything?
Nathan squinted. The list was massive, but certain patterns stood out.
A lot of them are from lower economic sectors, but some are highly ranked. Scientists, government workers, even security personnel.
Julian nodded.
Equilibrium isn't just for removing the weak. It's eliminating specific people. Anyone who might threaten the system.
Nathan's blood ran cold.
So someone high up is deciding who gets erased?
Julian pulled up a separate window, this one filled with encrypted messages.
There's a rumor in the underground. A council real people, not AI, who override Equilibrium's algorithm when necessary. They decide who lives and who dies.
Nathan swallowed.
And you think one of them wanted me gone?
Julian leaned forward.
I don't think. I know.
He clicked another tab, and a surveillance image appeared. It was grainy, but Nathan recognized the face immediately. Nathan's former boss, Darius Langley. Chapter 5. A Dangerous Plan. Nathan's hands clenched into fists. Langley had always been a bureaucrat, a corporate climber who followed orders without question. But why would he want Nathan erased? Julian was already thinking ahead.
If Langley's involved, that means he has access to the override system. If we can get to him, we might be able to undo your purge.
Nathan shook his head.
Even if we reach him, how do we make him talk? He won't just hand over access.
Julian smirked.
That's where the Hollow's network comes in.
He turned to a side door and motioned for someone to enter. A woman stepped in, her piercing green eyes scanning Nathan carefully. She was dressed in tactical gear, a sidearm strapped to her thigh. Her presence radiated confidence.
This is Sienna,
Julian said.
She used to work inside Equilibrium's enforcement division. Now she's with us.
Sienna crossed her arms.
You want to take down Langley? I know how to get you in.
Nathan looked between the two of them.
What's the plan?
Sienna smirked.
We infiltrate his office, but we don't just confront him, we make Equilibrium believe he's a threat to the system. If we play this right, the AI will purge him instead.
Nathan exhaled sharply. This was insane, but it was the only chance he had.
Let's do it.
Chapter 6: Infiltrating the Enemy. The plan was risky, but it had to work. Sienna used her old credentials to slip them into the government district unnoticed. Nathan, now dressed in a stolen security uniform, moved through the corridors of the administration complex, his pulse pounding. Julian's voice crackled through his earpiece.
You're approaching Langley's office. Security shows 3 enforcers inside. Be careful.
Sienna moved ahead, her steps silent.
Leave them to me.
Nathan took a deep breath and entered behind her. Within seconds, Sienna had neutralized 2 guards with precise, non-lethal blows. The third reached for his weapon, but Nathan lunged, slamming him into the desk. Langley stood frozen behind his desk, his face pale.
What do you want?
Nathan grabbed him by the collar.
You erased me. Now tell me why.
Langley stammered.
I don't decide the scores. It's all equilibrium. The system flagged you.
Nathan tightened his grip.
Liar!
Julian's voice came through.
Nathan, we don't have time. Get his access codes.
Sienna pressed a gun to Langley's temple.
You have 2 choices. Give us the codes, or let equilibrium decide your fate.
Langley's eyes darted wildly. He exhaled shakily and typed a sequence into his terminal.
There, that's the master override.
Nathan looked at the screen. If this was real, he could restore his LifeScore and expose the entire system. But then Julian's voice turned urgent.
Guys, security's moving in. Fast!
Nathan faced a choice: restore himself quietly or bring the whole system down. Sienna met his gaze.
What's it gonna be, Carter?
Nathan took a deep breath and reached for the keyboard. Chapter 7: The Point of No Return. Nathan's fingers hovered over the keyboard. His heart pounded. He had mere seconds to decide. If he only restored his own LifeScore, he could walk away unnoticed. But if he brought the entire system down, chaos would ensue. Millions would be free, or millions could die if the city collapsed without equilibrium. Sienna's voice was sharp.
Nathan, we're out of time. Security is closing in.
Julian's voice crackled through the comms.
Do it, Carter. Bring it all down.
Nathan made his choice. His fingers danced over the keys, executing a virus Julian had prepared in advance. The override codes were fed into Equilibrium's core, triggering an immediate rollback of every purge in the past year. On screens across the city, a single message appeared. Equilibrium overridden. Emergency system reboot initiated. A tremor ran through the floor beneath them. The entire system had begun resetting itself. Langley, still held at gunpoint by Sienna, gasped.
You have no idea what you've done.
Nathan turned toward him.
Enlighten me.
Langley's face was a mixture of fear and rage.
Equilibrium isn't just a management system. It regulates the entire city's power grid, medical AI, food distribution. You've destabilized everything.
Nathan's stomach twisted. He hadn't considered the consequences beyond the immediate goal. The people purged would be restored, but what if the infrastructure collapsed in the process? Julian's voice came through, urgent.
You need to get out. Now! The government will be here any second. And if they catch you...
The building shuddered violently. Red warning lights flickered as the PA system crackled to life. Security breach detected, initiating lockdown. Chapter 8: The Escape. Sienna fired a shot past Langley's head, making him flinch.
We're done here.
Nathan, Sienna, and Julian bolted from the office just as metal shutters began slamming down over the exits. They sprinted through the corridors, dodging security drones that hovered in pursuit. Julian cursed.
We need a way out.
Sienna led them toward the emergency stairwell.
Roof access. We can get to the extraction point.
Nathan's lungs burned as they climbed the metal staircase. The whole building was in chaos. They could hear panicked voices, alarms blaring, and the distant hum of aircraft engines. Government response teams were inbound. They burst onto the rooftop. A sleek hovercraft hovered nearby, its side door already open. Julian shouted into his comms.
We're here! Take off in 20 seconds, with or without us.
Sienna spun around, covering their retreat as armed enforcers emerged onto the roof.
Move!
Nathan leaped into the hovercraft, pulling Julian in behind him. Sienna fired off one last burst before diving in after them. The craft lurched upward, the city's skyline stretching below them. Enforcers fired, bullets pinging off the metal hull, but within seconds they were gone, vanishing into the thick clouds above New Manhattan. Chapter 9: The Fallout. Inside the hovercraft, the tension was suffocating. The city lights below flickered erratically as Equilibrium's reboot rippled through every system. Julian exhaled heavily.
We actually did it.
Nathan didn't feel victorious. His hands trembled as he watched the city below.
What happens now?
Sienna holstered her weapon.
We lay low. The government will hunt us, but they'll be too busy containing the damage to find us right away.
Julian frowned, his fingers dancing over a portable terminal.
We've set something bigger in motion. The system will adapt, but people will start questioning it now. We may have just triggered the first real rebellion.
Nathan leaned back, his mind racing. He was still a fugitive. His LifeScore might be back, but he could never return to his old life. Outside, the first explosions rocked the city as Equilibrium's controlled balance began to unravel. The fight wasn't over, it was just beginning.